Who's in peril in the Championship? Can Hamilton defy gravity and stay in League One? And what's the score with Spartans? I'm David Currie, and join me today on a voyage of discovery as we journey beyond the Premiership. Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast, news, views and analysis, all that you need on Tuesday the 10th of March. Today, to the Championship and beyond, by which I mean Leagues 1 and 2. St Johnstone extend their lead at the top of the Championship, are Queen's Park in a battle for the playoff and relegation at the same time, and Morton, they're heading in the wrong direction, but who else is in danger of the drop? In League 1, Queen of the South and East Fife are struggling for form. Alloa, though, are picking up the points, but can anyone catch Inverness and Stennismuir? Can Hamilton Accies pull off the great escape and avoid the playoff? And in League 2, what's with Spartans? Who will get that last playoff spot as 4 teams battle it out? And will this be the week Edinburgh City get off the bottom of the table? We've got all you need to know about who's up and who's down beyond the Premiership.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Time to say hello to our special guests today, our Broth midfielder Ryan Flynn and a view from the terrace presenter Craig Telfer. Good morning, gentlemen. Ryan, I have to ask this. Have you recovered from that Ross County game at the weekend? Sounds pretty eventful. What, 7 yellows, 2 reds?
Yeah, I mean, it was a game with flashpoints rather than actual quality and good football on show, that's for sure. It wasn't one for the purists.
A wee bit ill-tempered then. A quiet weekend for you though, Craig, as usual?
Yes, you might have seen on social media the Stennismuir team supporters were got bricked by an errant Queen of the South fan in the 1-1 draw. So thankfully I wasn't on it, and thankfully no one was hurt. But Stennismuir just keep on grinding away at the top of the table. Hopefully somebody can do us a bit of a favour, reeling Inverness Caledonian Thistle. But other than that, just perfectly pleasant. The world keeps turning on its axis one day closer towards the tombstone, all that sort of stuff.
Beautiful stuff. Right, let's dive in, gents, shall we? We'll start with some Tuesday Championship chat. We'll start at the top of the table. And I look forward to the BBC Scotland live game this Friday. It's Partick Thistle on the telly again after their Cub exit on Sunday at the hands of the Buddies. They face Morton at Capello. Are we agreed, folks? You first, Ryan, that the Harry Rags can ill afford to drop any more points, as they're maybe running out of games now to catch the Perth Sainties?
Yeah, and I think probably we've been talking about a title challenge at the top of the league for Partick Thistle. Probably it's just credit to Partick Thistle because St Johnstone have been outstanding. They just go and keep producing. Even the game at the weekend, I think the biggest thing you can say about St Johnstone is Simo Valakari. He's really imprinted himself on the team. Even in a tight KG game that Morton are really scrapping, making it difficult for St Johnstone, they remain calm and composed, and that's what he seems to be as a manager. Even in his interviews when they have lost games, we're maybe talking about, is there a title challenge? Are St Johnstone faltering? It's never really been the case. They've been in control. And a big thing he talks about is when it is difficult in games is keeping clean sheets. And he was giving massive praise to his full team for keeping it 0 for as long as possible. And then a bit of real quality from the free kick from Rhys McAleer, just to put into the side, right hand side of the goal, over the wall, lovely free kick, and then again St Johnstone in full control, and probably that belief that Morton have got in that game dies away. And then to top it off with Czech Diabate driving through the right of the heart of Morton and then slipping in. So that's your left centre half driving forward and creating assist for your marauding right back and Liam Smith. So no, it was business as usual probably for St Johnstone. For Partick, you've just got to keep clawing away and hope that pressure does get to St Johnstone at some point, but ultimately it doesn't look like that's going to be the case.
Aye, it's for once, or the Championship title race is less interesting, Craig, than the Premiership title race.
I think so. I think Ryan summed up the match between St Johnstone and Greenock Morton very well. I think it was quite a cagey affair just up until Rhys McAleer opened the score, and it's such a good goal that it really came out of nothing. A free kick from 25 yards that it did sort of visibly suck out the belief that Morton had in the match. But St Johnstone now have laid down that gauntlet for Partick Thistle. There's really no margin of error whatsoever for Partick Thistle, and on top of that, they really need someone to try and do them a favour and beat St Johnstone. It just feels like there's too many factors that are going against Partick Thistle to make it a serious title race. And I think you might be right, David. I think that actually when you look across all the divisions, this might be the least interesting title race out of the lot of them, because it feels like all the good work that St Johnstone did at the beginning of the season to put themselves in such a great advantage, that is ultimately what's going to win them the title. The only time there was that wee wobble when they lost to Partick Thistle, sort of around the December, January time, and followed up with a couple of draws. Thistle just never took advantage of that, and St Johnstone, it just feels like they've held them at arm's length over the course of the season, and I can't really see that changing between now and the end of the campaign.
I'm just wondering, Ryan, what do you think the impact might be of the Thistle's Cup exit in Paisley on Sunday? Will they take confidence from that performance? Will it help them, or will it maybe, I don't know, dent their momentum a wee bit?
No, I think it'll be. I think the momentum they'll take from that. I mean, there must be real belief, maybe from all Championship sides, that if they keep sort of plugging away and getting to the playoffs, could it be one of the years that you could go and upset one of the Premiership sides in the end of the playoff game at the end of the season? I thought Partick Thistle were outstanding, the way they moved the ball away, the way they controlled the game. Really unfortunate. I thought Mark Wilson spoke so well at the disappointment of receiving that VAR penalty. It was so harsh, undeserved, and then St Mirren got the job done, got over the line. But Partick Thistle must take so much credit for the way they go about their business. At no point did they panic, start going. They've obviously got bigger players up front, they can go direct, but it was just the football and the control that they had, and they had chances towards the end of the game. If that goes 2-2, then probably Partick on the ascendancy and probably look like the ones that are going to go through. So I think they'll just dust themselves down. They've got time to the next game. I mean, it is a big game. There is pressure to win if they want to have a title challenge. But if not, it's Partick Thistle can definitely go with confidence into the playoffs.
I was thinking for a few minutes I was at the game, Craig, and I was thinking, no, this has the feeling of a wee playoff final game here. The way the buddies are going at the moment. But Thistle were impressive.
Yeah, Thistle were impressive, but Thistle have generally been impressive over the course of the season. I think we've spoken on this podcast a number of times about our expectations for the club. Very difficult summer with that transitional period with Brian Graham leaving, like Ian Barraclough suffering a serious injury, that maybe stunting their opportunities to go and recruit players. But on the whole, I think Wilson's surprised a lot of people in terms of what he's done. You know, his previous jobs at the likes of Brecon City, Airdrieonians, not particularly like impressive, not much to write home about, and coming in here is effectively just a maybe, and not my words, but an over promoted youth coach, quote unquote. But he's shown himself to be like a good man manager. I think him and Alex Ray work very well together in the dugout. Tactically flexible, the calibre of players that he signs, a good profile of guys, all young, fit, energetic, good footballers that can get around the park and have got a good attitude. And I think he's like bringing in guys like Tony Watt to help knit all that attack together. It's very impressive the job that he's done. And Thistle, I think, are even the fact that they're still in this title race, like going into the final quarter of the season, I think him and his players deserve a lot of credit for how they acquitted themselves. And you're right, David, they were really good against St Mirren. A VAR penalty call, but that's something, if they do go up next season, that's something they'll probably have to deal with on a weekly basis. So they might be happy enough to stay in the Championship off the back of that.
Well, as somebody that goes to see St Mirren regularly, I can now say, well, these VAR things, they even themselves out over the season. But I thought, Ryan, I thought Tony Watt second half was the best player on the pitch.
No, I think I quite like what Craig was saying about how he's come in and really knitted that whole team together, and he's probably one that's got the know-how and experience to get over the line when it really matters. And he's maybe the one that sometimes he can play the pantomime villain, as in he gets involved in everything. He's at the refs. He's a big guy, then he's falling over. He's just got that know-how and knack to win games of football, and he's maybe the one that's driving the younger players. And if it is a bit of a cagey game, he's maybe the one within that changing room and on that pitch, just calming things down. I think not just off the pitch things, but then he's producing on the pitch with creating chances, being on the ball. He's always involved in the build-up play, dropping deep, linking the game. So no, I probably agree with you there. I thought Tony Watt was outstanding, but I think he's had a really strong season. And probably feels unfortunate to be playing maybe in the Scottish Championship. He's got the calibre to still be playing the Premiership.
Well, we don't need to wait till Friday for Championship action, guys, because there's a game tonight. Ayr United are home to Queen's Park. Interestingly, they play each other at the weekend too, when the Spiders will be at home. Interesting from the Queen's Park point of view, they're in a weird position of looking up and down. Craig, the maybe promotion playoff contenders, but also they need to watch they don't fall into the drop zone and end up in the relegation playoffs.
I would say from a Queen's Park perspective, I'd be more concerned with looking over your shoulder. It's very, very tight at the bottom of the table. Maybe another couple of wins or so, and maybe that might change the expectations for the course of the season. But I would still say that Queen's Park are perhaps one of the more likelier sides to finish in the bottom two. However, I would say that I've been so impressed with Sean Crichton and his players over this past couple of weeks. You know, to bounce back, they had a number of setbacks from losing Josh Fowler to St Johnstone, your best player, primary goal scorer, and then you lose 8-0 to Rangers, which could have had a catastrophic effect on the course of the season. The fact that since then they've picked up, was it like 3 wins and a draw out there, so 10 points out of possible 15 to carry them up the table. Really impressive stuff. I think that they signed well in January, bringing in some experienced guys, and on top of that, the goal at the weekend against Ayr Dronians, it was scored by Michael Ruth. He's been out for about 5 months with an injury. A great player when he was at Dumbarton before he returned to Queen's Park, and it's great to see him scoring. Really strong, intelligent runner, good striker as well. That's a really good goal, and I think that the scoreline perhaps belies the fact that they were a lot better than Ayr Dronians at the weekend, and that's a bit of a 6-pointer for them to beat a team that was so close to them. So, Queen's Park still in a bit of bother at the moment, but they do seem on current form the likeliest of probably the 4 or 5 teams at the bottom there to extricate themselves from it and finish as high up the table as possible.
Yeah, Ayr United, Ryan, a wee bit of a kind of dry run, as it were, but a win tonight takes them back into the top 4. What from their Broth point of view, what's the best outcome tonight?
From our Broth point of view, just everybody draws every week, every game. Yeah, it's so tight for everybody. As you say, Ayr, very unpredictable. They're definitely not a home side, that's for sure. And that's why I think tonight's game is going to be really interesting. They're not picking up enough points at home. And Queen's Park really are in form. It's interesting when you sort of listen to Sean Crichton's interviews that it's funny, Craig. Yeah, I think Queen's Park are outside noise. They're maybe saying we need to stay up, but I think within that squad, I think there's a bit of belief there, and I think they're going, no, we can cause an upset here. They're playing Ayr twice. All the pressure will be on Ayr. Scott Brown, they'll need to finish in the playoffs. We played them recently at Gayfield, and I'm disappointed, obviously, to then drop the 2 points. It ended up 1-1. I just feel like they're probably underachieving this season from the standard and the quality they've got within that squad, and they really need to finish in the playoffs. So I think there's 2 games coming up where all the pressure's on them and they really have to deliver. Yeah,
what about yourselves, Ryan? The weekend, I'm having a wee look here. You're away to Airdrie, team really struggling, and our Broth are going great guns. You must be looking forward to the playoffs already.
Definitely not. I'm playing it down.
I'm
here,
just baiting sure. You there.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a game that I think we've had a few good performances. The one at the weekend was a poor performance, and we just have to bounce back Airdrie are a team that have been struggling this season but have real quality in the transition. Henderson, any game we've played, he's been outstanding. He's such a threat, his pace, but then his quality, the times he drops in deep, gets on the half turn, gets shots off. He's a real thorn on our side every time we play them. And even bits of the highlights I seen from the Queen's Park game, he's in the thick of the action any time that Airdrie are doing something good. So if we have to be successful this Saturday, we have to keep him quiet. That's the ultimate goal.
Just having a look at the table, it's so tight there. I mean, you've got, like, what is it, 7 points between second bottom and fourth, or fifth rather.
Really brilliant.
So Morton, I mean, they're playing Partick Thistle Friday night, but they're on 3 defeats in the spin. They've kind of dropped into quite serious relegation bother, but again, they're not that far off the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that it's Ian Murray's come into a pretty tricky situation. You know, it took him a wee bit of time to actually get his feet under the table, and what I mean by that is from him joining, there was just postponements. So it took him about 3 or 4 weeks to actually get a game on the go, and they lost that to Stennismuir in the Scottish Cup, lest we forget. But at the weekend there, the defeat to St Johnstone, they gave it a good go in that game. But maybe lack of someone up front there that could really do damage to St Johnstone. On top of that as well, the previous week when they lost 3-1 against Airdrieonians, they had 2 players sent off, Cammy Ballantyne and Curtis Main. In his post-match interview, Ian Murray was saying that he really needs the fringe players to step up. He said, we've been relying on the same guys on a week-by-week basis. We need the sort of guys who aren't playing every week to step up. And I don't necessarily think that's happened for him. And I think that guys like Ian Murray, maybe you could say the same about Dougie Emery at Wraith Rovers, they just want to get to the end of the season. I think they're probably they've had a good chance to see the players that they like, the players that they don't like, and I think they'll just want to gut the squads and then go again next season in their own image. But you can't just afford to write off the season, as you're saying there, David. The Morton, Wraith Rovers, there's a wee bit of a whiff about them that they could get suckered into the nonsense at the bottom. So it's just important to try, and the guys that you don't necessarily trust, you're going to have to lean on them between now and at the end of the season, because there's still a lot of football to be played.
Well, there's a wee whiff about Dunfermline at the moment as well. It's maybe the sweet scent of success. They're on a decent run there, and Ryan, result of the weekend in the cup.
Outstanding. I thought it's great for Scottish Championship. I mean, there's at times you do hear people saying the quality of the Scottish Championships hasn't been as great this season, and then you've got 2 Scottish Championship sides playing in the quarter-final and producing massive performances, one coming out deservedly on top, putting Aberdeen to bed. Obviously Aberdeen had a couple of chances here and there, but it was a dominant display by Neil Lennon's side. Quality goals as well. I think that was it. It wasn't just a snatch and grab and scruffy goals. I just thought it was outstanding to watch. The crowd and the atmosphere looked electric. And then Neil Lennon's talking about after the game what it means to the community, but then in the grand scheme of things of the results and achievements he's had, he thinks it's one of his greatest achievements. So it's just all positives for Dunfermline, and they're probably the ones that I think have got the tail between their legs, and they'll be the ones looking to push up that league and really do something in the playoffs. And I think that's what Neil Lennon brings. He brings that belief. At times, he can probably be hard on the players, but they must love him because the performances they're putting on is outstanding when they are the underdogs.
Before we move on, chaps, I'll just say coverage of Morton versus Partick Thistle live, BBC Scotland, 19:30, 7:30 in Old Money on Friday night. Let's dreep then, if I can use that word. Dreep, is that a word? That is now. Into League One. In the curious case of Hamilton Accies, Craig, they flirted with administration, changed owners, had a heap of points deducted, playing away from New Douglas Park, and yet they've still got a chance of staying up.
It's crazy, but I think that the past week or so has been pretty positive for Hamilton Academical. You take the result at the weekend, they beat East Fife 3-0, pretty convincingly beat East Fife 3-0. But I think most importantly is the sort of the medium to long term future of the club's been secured. The new owners, there was a bit of a bit of a stumbling block in place in terms of there was money owed to a loans company who had helped them to pay the wages for December, and I think that they wanted their money back before the new owners could really kick on. That has now been resolved, which is fantastic, and the club can just concentrate on basically just trying to stay in the division. And I think that they went about that in the best way possible. 3-0 win over East Fife. East Fife are, if we're going to be kind, East Fife are probably the worst form side in Scotland at the moment. They're really, really in a bad place. But Hamilton took full advantage of that. Some really slick football, some really nice goals. The opener for Kevin O'Hara especially was very well taken. And I think that when you're seeing that how poorly East Fife are doing, the fact that Cove Rangers can still be caught, you would say that I think that Hamilton, now that the future secured, I think that could have a galvanising effect in Darren McKinnon and the rest of the players and say, listen, if we can stay in this division, if we can avoid finishing in ninth place, maybe even just kick on just in finish in eighth place, that gives us a brilliant platform for the future. And I think that's a real rallying point for the team to work towards. But great result and just a good solid couple of weeks for them, especially off the park. That's huge for them.
Yeah, it's a stressful old job for Darren McKinnon, Ryan. You think if he keeps him up, he must be in with an outside chance of being manager of the year.
To be fair, the job he's done on and off the park's incredible. I mean, what Craig said there is dealing with all that off the park is so difficult. But it's probably the standard that's produced on the park after that. I mean, the first two goals are great football and goals. The one-touch football, the movement, cut right through East Fife very easily. So, as you say, Darren McKinnon deserves all the praise. And not only that, going into games like that, you're talking probably a 6-point a game. Could they catch East Fife now? But he decided he dropped Shaw and Bradley. And that's big key decisions at big moments of the season. And it's paid off. Ollie Shaw comes off the bench and scores the third to really wrap up the game. So, no, everything's going well for Hamilton. I think they will stay up. I think the belief within that club will be that they can stay up. The ones I worry about are probably East Fife. East Fife are falling like a stone, and any team that are around there, obviously you're talking about Hamilton and Cove fighting against each other. I think it could be East Fife that could really drop in there, and they're the ones that have to worry.
What about automatic promotion, Craig? We're talking Steny here. Can they reclaim top spot? What are their prospects?
Of course they can. Of course they can. I think that if the Stenisphere have had just a very, very strong season. They obviously need Inverness, Caledonian to Thistle to slip up. But if Stenisphere don't win the league, I do think they'll go up via the playoffs. I'm very, very confident in this group of players. They weren't at their best against Queen of the South at the weekend. I was down at Palmerston for it. First time at Palmerston as well. Cracking place to go and watch football. And I thought that Stenisphere were the better side in the first half. Queens were well off, but in the second half, Kai Kennedy was just suddenly on the ball all the time, and Stenisphere really struggled to kind of get to grips with him. He was pulling out wide, he was dropping into the space behind the strikers, and it wasn't until Leighton Grant came on as a substitute that Stenisphere were able to really calm things down. So I think a draw was the fair result in that contest, but it just allowed Inverness, Caledonian Thistle to get that. To get a 3-1 win over Montrose and sort of build that advantage that they've got back at the top of the table. But Cali Thistle, it was you describe it as a professional performance in this match as well. The way the game ebbed and flowed, the fact that they had chances when they were 1-up, Montrose equalising just after the interval, and that Cali Thistle were ultimately able to see it out. And watching Scott Keller's post-match interview, he just delighted that it's just another step closer towards the title for him. So while Inverness, Caledonian Thistle still the favourites, you never go against Gary Naismith's Warriors. I'm telling you, they'll be there right to the very end. Book it.
Finally then, folks, League 2, the newish kids on the block, East Kilbride, top of the table, 7 wins in the spin. Are they, Ryan, unstoppable?
It looks like it now. I mean, throughout the season, I thought Spartans were going to be the team that were going to do it. I felt just trying to play the sort of the brandy football throughout the season could be tough, but they just outgun anyone they're playing, and it's great to watch at times. John Robertson probably will finish League 2 play of the season, rightly so. I think he's been outstanding, involved in everything that's good that comes out of East Kilbride. they deserve massive credit for the way they've went about it. Heavily defeat to Spartans not that long ago. That's well forgotten about. Bounce back, win, and they just look like they're going to go strength to strength. And can Spartans hang on their coattails and try and make it a title race towards the end of the season? It doesn't look like it. Spartans were missing Welsh at the weekend, and then they've slipped up massively, losing heavily 3-0. They had chances in the game early on, but once those chances came and went, Dumbarton thoroughly deserved their 3 points, and that probably makes it interesting at the bottom end of the table in League Two as well.
Yeah, speaking of the bottom end of League Two, in recent seasons, Clyde and Stranraer have been flirting with relegation, but they seem to have righted their respective ships, Craig. They're kind of punching above their weight, overperforming a wee bit this year. Is that fair to say?
Maybe Stranraer, maybe, but I think Clyde are probably where they deserve to be based on the relative squads and as a fan looking in from the outside, what you think the budget would be. I think Clyde are where a lot of people would expect to be. The disappointment for Clyde, though, is that it's been quite a bad week for them, and what I mean by that is that having a really good win over Stirling Albion, I was there to see it, they were really good in that match, follow up with a 5-0 win over Edinburgh City. They go and play Dumbarton, and this was a Dumbarton team who were really down in the dumps at the moment. They didn't really do much to attack them, finished 0-0, really poor. You follow it up by losing 3-1 against East Kilbride, and then it's a draw against Forfar Athletic at the weekend, and it feels like that's Clyde's title challenge gone. I think they were an outside bet for it. Now it's effectively just a straight shootout between East Kilbride and the Spartans. So I think Clyde will finish in the playoffs. I think they depending on who finishes in ninth, could be in with a shout of promotion. But Stranraer, as you mentioned, I think that they've maybe caught a lot of people by surprise. I didn't think they'd have a particularly good season. I thought they'd signed too many boys from the West of Scotland Premier Division. There's obviously there's some good players at that level, not want to be disrespectful to them, but when you're taking 6 players en masse and sticking them into the SPFL and signing loads of younger players from the likes of Hearts and so on, I'm not sure how much a recipe that is for success. It shows how much I know. It has been a recipe for success. They were really poor against Edinburgh City at the weekend. That might have been their worst performance of the season. Chris Aitken was like fuming after the match. He was really unhappy with his players. Jordan Stewart got a really bad red card for kicking in his loss, and he was unhappy with the referee as well. So I think that's perhaps the poorest they've been this season. They're in a really good position. You mentioned it right at the top there. There's a number of teams that can all finish in that final playoff spot, but Stranraer, out of the lot of them, I would have them as my favourite. So it's been a difficult few years for them. Sorry to talk for a long time here, but I like what Chris Aitken and his backroom team are doing at the moment. I'd fancy them to finish fourth.
Well, they're playing Dumbarton tonight.
I'm going to go to that game. Nothing else on in my life, so why not go and watch some cracking lower league football? Well, a good chance to go and see Dumbarton as well, who brilliant result against the Spartans, and with Edinburgh City also winning, it's just bunching up quite nicely at the foot of the table. So I think from an Edinburgh perspective, they'll be hoping Stranraer can do the business here. This is Dumbarton's game in hand. Dumbarton win this, they open up a 5-point lead at the bottom of the table, and I think we're just running out of games at this stage for Edinburgh to catch up. But hey, like Gary Naismith, you never write them off. You never ever write off Michael Mackindo's team either.
You want to write them off, Ryan? Edinburgh City at the bottom.
No, I'm just thinking. I'm thinking Craig's maybe doing some scouting for Edinburgh City the way he's went on this season. But no, it's a big game. Probably for Edinburgh City tonight for 2 games with Annan playing Elgin City as well, and then Dumbarton playing Stranraer. So they'll be hoping that they're drop points for the 2 teams at the bottom of the table. But no, it has been incredible for Edinburgh City to be in with a fight at the start of the season the way they produced, but it's still a tough ask. And with Dumbarton sort of producing this stage of the season, games are running out. It could go right to the wire.
Games are running out. Time is running out as well, folks. We'll have to call a halt to proceedings there. That's all we've got time for today. Many thanks to Ryan Flynn and Craig Telfer for their expertise and wisdom, and most of all, thanks to you for listening. Remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast, bright, breezy and early every day. So to make sure you don't miss out, subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on your phone. We have been your Scottish Football Podcasters this Tuesday. Take care, and we'll speak soon.
It's petty, it's ill-informed.
Are President Trump's cuts having an adverse effect on research?
It's pandemonium.
What number's that in the periodic table?
PD, number 47. I don't know.
I've done the shooting clays before. The longer you do it, the sorer obviously it gets.
When Craig said there he'd been shooting the clays, I imagined him out a back line. Somebody's washing, you know.
William Shatner, his secretary, contacted me to say, when Bill has a question now and again, can he contact you? And then one time he called me up and he wanted to know, David, what is a photon? I'm thinking, this is incredible. Captain Kirk wants to know what a photon is, you know.
I once met a guy who referred to a globe as a ball map. A ball map.
Look at the ball map.
What we normally do is spin the ball map and we see where we go on holiday.
The Off the Ball podcast, available every Monday on BBC Sounds.